What's good, YouTube? Quinn Wade basketball analysis. Now, this ain't a rebuilding. That come out later today, well, tomorrow. But we want to talk about the hot news of Doc Rivers signing a extension to stay with the Los Angeles Clippers. It's surprising because a lot of people seen that they re-signed Blake Griffin to a ridiculous deal. Some people said he wasn't worth it. Some people said he was untradeable. And they started off rocky. And at the end of the day, Doc Rivers was never able to bring them a championship. Doc Rivers was he still is, but he's one of the top 5 coaches at that time. He struggled with Boston, but he stayed with it. Danny Ainge kept him as the coach, and he was able to help them reach the NBA Finals twice and also win an NBA championship. He was a highly respected and coveted coach. A lot of people thought, he made great plays. He made great out of bounds plays. He made the right adjustments. He just didn't have the talent. But when they got rid of Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce, and Ray Allen left to Miami, he came back to reality. Doc Rivers, if he's a championship coach, he needs a championship talent. So as the Celtics went in a rebuild mode, Doc Rivers wanted to go to a team that he can go and have a chance to be competitive and be able to win the championship. So Doc Rivers ended up getting traded. You very rarely see coaches get traded to a team. They gave up a draft pick on top of that to get Doc Rivers to come to the Clippers. And he goes to the Clippers and he does the right thing and say, hey, you guys haven't done anything. You guys haven't won a championship. You guys haven't even went to the Western Conference Finals. And I'm talking about Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. These are 2 established multiple-time All-Stars. Chris Paul was one of the top 7 players in the league, arguably top 5 at that point. And he goes in there and say, you guys haven't done enough. You guys haven't even did anything. And then he coaches there. And I would definitely give him credit because he stayed with it. He held down his position. He was able to help them do things that the franchise never was able to do. And even though Vinny Del Negro helped them get to the playoffs and he was an upgrade over them, they fought against OKC. They was able to beat the San Antonio Spurs. But you have to give him less credit because sometimes he did build this roster at one point, and they had Josh Smith, they had Lance Stevenson. Those were their major signings at one point. Then he lost both of them. Then he traded for Jeff Green, and this team never really went to a championship level. And some people even started to pick that the Clippers, it's their time. And they never was able to even get to the Western Conference Finals as long as Doc Rivers was the coach and the GM at one point. And he never could find the right balance for the bench. He played his starters too many minutes. Even though Chris Paul and Blake Griffin continued to get injured, every season it was another injury. In the playoffs too, they got injured a couple times in the playoffs, once against Portland. And remember, Chris Paul was banged up in the San Antonio series, and then they was fatigued and lost to the Rockets. And then of course Chris Paul and Blake Griffin went out again. And those are just freakish things that you can't really control. You can't really blame Doc Rivers for them getting those type of injuries because it's just part of basketball. The ugly part of basketball is the injuries. It's something that the players don't want to see. It's something that the fans don't want to see. And Doc Rivers could not do anything but go out there and compete with the roster that he had. Obviously, even this season, Doc Rivers had opportunities to get fired because they was underperforming, but Danilo went down. Blake kept coming and back and in and out of the lineup injured. They just fought through so much adversity this season, and for them to still be able to take the talent that they have and put these players in a position, run an offense that's simple for them to execute, have a defense that's respectable, not great, not elite, but respectable, because you just don't have the talent. And they just found ways to grind. They found ways to just found a way to win. Lou Williams never had a better season than the season that he had this year. He wasn't the most efficient, but he was put in great spots to utilize his talent and to give him options offensively, whether it was passing, shooting a three. Doc Rivers really found a way to use Austin Rivers. Austin Rivers, to me, had his best season in his whole career. And nobody really thought he would be that good. People thought he was great because he was a top 10 pick, but after he was with the Pelicans, people thought that he would. The only reason why he was in the NBA was because Doc Rivers was the coach. If Doc Rivers wasn't the coach, people thought that Austin Rivers would be out of the league. And then you just see how much confidence he had. He took tough shots. He made the tough shots. He got to the paint. Austin Rivers looked it good this year. I even made a video about him. He looked it that good under the tutelage of Doc Rivers. He looked amazing. And I'm not saying he's a superstar. I'm not saying he's a franchise point guard, but he played with the confidence and he had the intangibles of one. And he went out there and played hard. And he got the best out of this roster. Even if they would have made the playoffs, we knew they would have been a first round exit anyway. It would have been good for him to go through all this adversity and still make the playoffs. It would have been a good story. It would have got him some Coach of the Year votes, which he already won before. But hey, he made the best out of the roster. Trading Blake Griffin was surprising because he was having a great season even throughout the injuries. DeAndre Jordan is a guy that can opt out of his contract. A lot of teams will want him because he's still young and he can make an impact solidly defensively, and he's a monster on the boards. Plus, you want those long athletic bigs that can set screens for the shooters and get to the rim and finish like the Goberts and players like DeAndre Jordan and Dwight Howard, a guy that can protect the rim, crash the boards, and roll to the basket. Is a lot of teams in the league looking for that type of personnel, and for Doc Rivers to have so many role players and so many limited players to get them to be one of the better offensive teams in the league with no superstar player and a lot of injuries. You have to give him credit that he still is one of the best coaches in the league. Now, the GM wise, that's fixed because remember, they brought Jerry West in as a consultant. So he's going to always have his opinion in there to help Doc Rivers with these choices and to make the job easier getting talent. Jerry West done won multiple championships as an executive and as a GM, even with the Lakers, even with Golden State. So that's a guy that you trust his opinion because he's been able to evaluate talent, see talent, and find a way to get talent to this roster. And people know that Jerry West brings a winning culture. People know that Doc Rivers brings a winning culture. And that's something that you want, especially in an organization that's been bad and had bad luck and hasn't been able to really be great until Chris Paul and Blake Griffin was able to make that run of a couple years in a row making the playoffs and winning 50 games. You definitely have to give credit to Doc Rivers for staying humble, for staying with it, and you have to give credit with the Clippers for believing in him and knowing that, hey, we can win a championship with Doc Rivers as our coach. We respect him. Even though he didn't make the right moves as a GM, he still got the maximum out of his players, and he never really could have a healthy roster. They blew that OKC series and they blew that Houston series. I give you that. But after that, they had a lot of injuries and they never could get healthy. And even when sometimes Chris Paul would be down, sometimes Blake would be down, and they just could never get it all clicking on all cylinders to the point where we knew they had the championship talent. We know that they can win the championship, but they were never fully able to pull it together. And you can blame part of that on Doc Rivers, but some of that is out of his control. And who are you really going to hire? Who really wants to go for the Clippers? Who really wants to rebuild? Because like I said, even if they get another marquee free agent, they still got to build around that player. Who do you want? If I was Doc Rivers, I would love to compete for a championship. I would love to be on the championship team. But you in LA, you getting one of the best contracts in the NBA, and you getting paid like one of the best, and you have a GM and a owner that believes in you and wants you. It's a beautiful thing to be wanted, especially when they're willing to pay you and give you the job security of years. And even if you get fired, you still gonna get paid big dollars just for the contract that they're gonna owe you. So this is the only loss in it is that Doc Rivers probably won't be competing for a championship. But at the same time, he has consistency with the coach and the GM and the owner. He knows what they're doing. He knows their direction. He knows what they're trying to do. And they're all on the same page. And this is a move great for Doc Rivers to be in a situation where he knows the personnel and he has trust in the organization from top to bottom. And the players want him and the players respect him, even if they might not be around here long term. Doc Rivers is a guy that been in the ugly with Boston and had the highs with Boston, and why he shouldn't be able to do that with the Clippers. It's one thing to be wanted, but especially when they want to give you an extension, you're not going to find too many coaches of Doc Rivers caliber, and you're not going to really find a better spot when you have a person like Jerry West in your ear and a guy like Steve Ballmer willing to pay the cash and do things to get the talent to the Clippers. And Jerry West is also good in the drafts. They have 2 top 15 picks, and they can either move those to get another piece or trust Jerry West to make the right decision in scouting and find the right talent that can develop into stars, or in the future put this Clippers team back in contention. It might not happen this year. It might not happen this year. It might not happen next year. But at the end of the day, they have the right personnel to win a championship right now. They have the owner, they have the coach, they have the coaching staff, and they have Jerry West. So this is a championship culture right now. That's something that we can really never say about the Clippers until now. And I feel like they have a bright future if they do the things right. And like I said, you can't really second guess Jerry West either. So let me know what you guys think. Do you think they should have let him go? Do you think they should have kept him? Do you think he's worth the extension? Do you think he's overrated? Do you think he had success just because of talent? But you do need talent. Any coach needs talent. Phil Jackson needed talent. Greg Popovich needed talent. We seen that this year. So you do need the superstars and you do need the players. And he did get the best out of this roster this season, showing that he is still one of the best coaches in the league. So you definitely want him long term, especially if you can't replace him and find somebody else to do a better job. Plus, you already know him personally. You know how he works, and you already know what he wants, and you know what he can get out of the players. So it's worked for both sides to me. Worst case scenario, he got to rebuild for a couple years and stay with the Clippers while they're bad. Best case scenario, they figure it out this year and be back in contention for the playoff running without Blake or potentially without DeAndre, who seemed more utilized down the stretch than he ever has been with the Clippers, mainly because they needed him to do more, which helps him get out of his comfort zone and expand his game, which means we can see some better DeAndre Jordan seasons in the future if he decides to stay. And remember, they live in LA. Everybody loves that. Everybody lives there. Hey, and you getting paid to work there. So everybody comes there in the summer too, but you already got a house, you already got a job, and you live in the best city probably in America. So you can't really complain about too much when you're getting paid working and living in LA. Check out my website, analysisplayground.com. Link will be in the description in the comment section below. Check out my Facebook page, analysisplayground.com. Link will be in the description comment section below. And let me know what you guys think about the Clippers extending Doc Rivers' contract for the future.